Twinkie, Twinkie, Twinkie.
There's nothing worse than heading to the grocery store to pick up the snack food you've been craving, only to realize that it's completely disappeared off the shelves. Several of these discontinued food items were a big part of people's childhoods, meaning that they hold a lot of sentimental value. This makes it fun to look back on all the great foods you used to enjoy, some of which you may have forgotten about. So sit back, relax, and prepare to take a trip down memory lane as we look at 10 discontinued food items we miss, Part 3.
This Twinkie thing, it ain't over yet.
C-3PO's cereal.
I get hungry for 3PO cereal.
1984 was a year after the release of The Return of the Jedi, the third movie in George Lucas's original Star Wars trilogy. It was in this year that Kellogg's, milking the franchise's fame, came out with C-3PO's cereal. The pieces of the cereal were shaped like figure eights and were comprised of honey-sweetened oats, wheat, and corn. There were several different prizes that could be found in the bottom of each box, including stickers, trading cards, action figures, and plastic Rebel rockets. Today, these are all sought-after collectibles.
Putting these things in the shop will bring people in my shop.
Miniature boxes of this cereal were occasionally included in the multi-packs of Kellogg's cereals, but they were so hard to come by that they're now an incredibly valuable collector's item. C-3PO's cereal was loved for its crunch and great flavor, but sadly, it was discontinued in 1986, a mere 2 years after its release. This was a major upset for Star Wars fans and cereal lovers alike. In fact, many people are still lobbying for its return all these years later. While it's maybe futile to hope for the return of this specific cereal, the franchise has had a huge resurgence in popularity lately, so maybe we can hope for the release of some new Star Wars food items in the near future.
We seem to be made to suffer.
Banana Frosted Flakes.
It's all yours, Tiger.
The iconic Frosted Flakes mascot, Tony the Tiger, has recommended many great cereals over the years. One of these, which has been long forgotten, is Banana Frosted Flakes. Who hasn't cut up a banana to top off a bowl of cereal before? It's a classic combination, so the creation of this cereal was a logical move. In Banana Frosted Flakes, the pieces of classic sugar-frosted cereal were flavored to taste like bananas and had bits of real banana stuck onto them. The box depicted Tony the Tiger, who was quoted as saying that the cereal has real appeal because it was made with real bananas.
Go ahead, take those bananas.
And banana has appeal. It's very clever. Banana Frosted Flakes are another short-lived but well-loved cereal. They were originally introduced in 1981 and ultimately pulled from shelves in 1984. Recently, Kellogg's came out with a limited edition variation of this cereal called Banana Cream Frosted Flakes. Historically, revivals never quite live up to the legacy of the original, so if you were a fan of Banana Frosted Flakes back in the day, don't let this new cereal get your hopes up too high. However, it's always fun to try new foods, so if you manage to get your hands on a box, definitely give it a shot. Just try not to let your memories of cereals past hinder your enjoyment of the modern iteration.
They're great.
Strawberry Shortcake cereal.
My very favorite flavor, strawberry.
Strawberry Shortcake is a classic cartoon character with her own television shows, dolls, movies, and books. Her original TV show was pretty popular with children in the late 70s and early 80s, and the character has been redesigned and revived on multiple occasions since. Since Strawberry Shortcake was such a hit, it's not surprising that General Mills would use her as inspiration for a new breakfast cereal. Naturally, they went for the "It's Berry Delicious" pun as a tagline, but you can't really fault them for that, as it kind of comes with the Strawberry Shortcake territory. This cereal was essentially strawberry-flavored frosted corn, which had been puffed into a spherical shape. It kind of looked like strawberry-flavored Cocoa Puffs. Of course, since it's Strawberry Shortcake cereal, you probably won't be surprised to hear that it was bright pink. This was another classic breakfast food of the early 80s, and memories of it incite nostalgia in the many people who grew up on it. Something you might not know about this cereal is that a companion cereal was also produced. This second cereal was based on another character in the Strawberry Shortcake universe, her friend Orange Blossom. As the name suggests, this cereal was orange-flavored.
This is orange flavored.
Which is kind of a weird flex for a cereal to have, so it's understandable that it was less popular than its strawberry-flavored counterpart. Both cereals were ultimately discontinued, but at the very least, the legacy of Strawberry Shortcake lives on.
This is supposed to be strawberry.
Philadelphia Cream Cheese Strawberry Cheesecake Snack Bars.
Light, cream cheese filling,
The name of this snack food alone is enough to make anyone's mouth water. It's pretty self-explanatory. And trust us when we say that these snack bars were as amazing as they sound. In discussions about the Philadelphia cream cheese strawberry cheesecake snack bar, you'll often hear words like delicious and divine being thrown around, and with good reason. These snack bars were a hit, and no one's quite sure why Kraft Foods stopped making them. They were released in the early 2000s, and like many of the other food items on this list, they didn't last very long before being pulled. With their graham cracker crumb base, creamy cheesecake topping, and strawberry filling, these snack bars gave you all the satisfaction you get from a slice of cheesecake, with all the ease of eating on the go you get from a granola or protein bar.
Protein bar. Good for bones.
They were a great addition to any lunchbox, and many people were quite sad to see them go. If you find yourself missing these snack bars, feel free to scope the web to find some copycat recipes and try making them for yourself. A lot of DIY reviews claim that their own version was almost as good as the original. The originals were pretty fantastic, so we're skeptical, but it's definitely worth a shot.
Are you eating the cheesecake without me?
Pudding Pops.
I got a bowl of chocolate pudding!
Barring an unfortunate marketing decision on Jell-O's part, that is to say, the use of Bill Cosby as spokesperson, Pudding Pops were a very successful and well-loved dessert. These frozen treats were available in the classic Jell-O pudding flavors of chocolate, vanilla, and chocolate vanilla swirl. They could be found in grocery store freezers everywhere, from the 70s through to the 90s. Over that period of more than 20 years, they developed a very strong fan base. However, in spite of the good sales, they weren't considered profitable enough to warrant further production. In the end, the executive decision was made to discontinue them.
I failed. You've made your point.
It's safe to say that there were a lot of people out there who considered that decision to be the wrong one. In fact, the outcry was so loud that in the early 2000s, Pudding Pops were re-released, but this time not by Jell-O, but by the Popsicle brand. This is a prime example of the revival not living up to the original. The texture was off, the shape was different, and no one was having any of it. So in 2011, they were discontinued once again. We're very open to the idea of them trying to release them again, since, you know, third time's a charm.
We didn't have any pudding in there, buddy.
Fruit string things.
Cue the fruits! Al-ataque!
We have to ask that you leave the no playing with your food rule at the door, thank you very much. Half the appeal of fruit string things came from the fact that they were so much fun to play with. They also tasted pretty great, but that was less of a selling point. Inside the package, you would find the fruit string thing rolled into a funky shape, such as a rocket ship, which could then be unwound and used to express all kinds of creativity. Think fruit roll-up, but better. Fruit snacks were all the rage during the 1990s, and this chewy candy came in a variety of fruit flavors.
Never ever want to do this with a pineapple.
We have to ask ourselves, did it actually taste as amazing as we remember, or does our love for it stem from all the fun we had playing with it? We might never find out, but since this Betty Crocker snack was such a staple of elementary school lunchboxes everywhere, a lot of 90s kids get pretty sentimental over it. Many have forgotten about this favorite childhood snack over the years, but reminding them of it really takes them back. For evidence of this, just check out Reddit's Nostalgia subreddit. There's quite a bit of discussion on this particular topic to be found there, and people get pretty defensive if anyone decides to talk smack about their favorite childhood snack.
I dare you! I double dare you!
Nestle Quik Bar.
There's your goddamn dinner.
Before the Nestle brand became universally known as Nesquik in 1999, it was referred to as Nestle Quik. Upon its foundation in 1948, Nestle Quik began releasing a series of mixes and syrups that could be used to flavor milk. These were met with such success that they decided to expand into other products. One of these, the Nestle Quik Bar, was their take on the classic chocolate bar. These bars had the pliable consistency of taffy and a flavor somewhere between that of milk chocolate and that of Nesquik chocolate flavoring.
Easing restrictions on school lunches to allow more chocolate milk.
In true Nesquik style, these chocolate bars were wrapped in yellow packaging with the famous Nesquik bunny placed next to the name. This chocolate bar had a lot of great things going for it, but unfortunately it didn't gain the popularity it needed to survive in the incredibly competitive snack food world. This is yet another food item of the 1990s, and if you take anything away from this list, let it be that the 90s were the heyday of snack foods. The decade had all the greatest hits, so for those of you too young to have tasted them, we send our deepest sympathies.
Chocolate is poisonous to dogs.
Flamin' Hot Cheetos Asteroids.
Doritos is dropping flamin' hot?
We've lost a lot of pretty awesome Cheetos snacks over the years. Flamin' Hot Cheetos Asteroids weren't the first, nor will they be the last. They are, however, some of the most sorely missed. As the name suggests, these Cheetos were not for the faint of heart. They packed a surprising punch, so if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen.
It's just that he was on fire.
They were packaged in plastic containers, which could be easily resealed. That is, if you didn't eat the entire container in one sitting. Cheetos Asteroids got their name from their unique shape. No two were quite alike, and while they were all more or less round, their surfaces were anything but smooth, making them reminiscent of an asteroid. Each individual piece was relatively small, and although they weren't super flavorful, they were crunchy and hot enough to be interesting. Flamin' Hot Cheetos Asteroids were popular in the early 2000s, but only survived a short time before being discontinued. Rumor has it that Cheetos might actually be bringing this product back sometime in 2019, so keep your eyes open for that.
I'm bringing back Asteroids.
Original Hostess fruit pies.
Well, take a look. It's a goddamn Hostess truck.
For over 30 years, from the early 1970s to the early 2000s, Hostess fruit pies were all the rage. This dessert was made popular in part due to the fact that it could be bought at your local convenience store for only a few dollars. These pastries looked more like turnovers than actual pies, but let's not focus on semantics. They contained a gooey fruit pie filling, which was made of real fruit, along with a boatload of sugar and artificial flavoring, and the crusts were coated with a sweet glaze. There were a handful of available flavors, which varied a bit over the years. The most common were apple, blackberry, lemon, peach, and strawberry. Just like how Planters food items are represented by a living depiction of their main ingredient, the famous Mr. Peanut, Hostess Fruit Pie's mascot is none other than Fruit Pie the Magician, who, in case you couldn't tell, is a live fruit pie with a top hat and a magic wand.
The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter.
Fruit Pie the Magician was the mascot of this Hostess product from 1973 to 2006. His most impressive magic trick was the ability to make fruit pies appear out of thin air. It's a shame the Fruit Pie Magician isn't here and willing to give an encore performance, as it seems like magic is the only way to find the original Hostess fruit pies anymore. Since they had such a long run, Hostess fruit pies managed to reach a very large amount of people, making them one of the most missed items on this list.
I like snowballs.
Slimer's Ectoplasm.
He's an ugly little spud, isn't he?
The Ghostbusters franchise was at the height of popularity in the 80s and remains a pop culture staple to this day. Since the films were so popular, it's only natural that several Ghostbusters-themed food items were produced around the time the movies were being released. One of the most popular among these was High C Ecto Cooler, a fruit juice that was discontinued in the 90s. Another food item based off the film series was Slimer's Ectoplasm, which is just as weird as it sounds. Actually, scratch that, it's weirder. Slimer's Ectoplasm could be purchased by the case, each of which contained a plastic figurine of the famous green ghost Slimer, who was a character in the Ghostbusters films. To get to the ectoplasm, which was the edible part of this candy, you had to remove Slimer's head. This revealed a small tube, which you were to then put in your mouth. From there, you had to squeeze Slimer's stomach, and a sour, sticky green liquid would be squirted out of the tube.
You got slime!
If the process sounds mildly disturbing to you, know that you're not alone in feeling this way. The ectoplasm was too sour and too slimy to actually be all that enjoyable, and the process of actually getting to it was a little too weird. But the Slimer figurine made for a pretty cool collectible. This was a really unique snack. For those reasons, we really miss this one.
Mood slime.
Stay right here and check out more of our great videos. All you have to do is tap that screen. New to our channel and don't want to miss out? Then hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to join our notification squad.